Well, let's talk about the potential impact of these words on the Canadian industry. We're now joined by Brian Kingston, the president and the CEO of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association. Brian, good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
So here we have the president and his commerce secretary. They seem very clear at this moment in time. They believe that vehicle assembly has to happen in the United States, not in Canada. Is this a done deal then?
I don't think so, and I think we need to just take a moment and calm down a little bit. I mean, I know those remarks understandably concern a lot of Canadians, but this is a negotiation. We've been through this before with the first Trump administration when we negotiated the CUSMA agreement. I think the conversations that occurred between the Prime Minister and the President looked very constructive. So I think we will get to an agreement. There is a mutually beneficial deal to be had. The Americans send more cars to Canada than they do to any other market in the world. So I think we've got the ingredients for a deal, and there is going to be a few more ups and downs along the way there.
Okay, is that what you're hearing from GM, Stellantis, and Ford? Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to have to make the decision as to where they want to put vehicle assembly.
Yeah, absolutely. So the message that the industry has been delivering to the U.S. government, to the White House, has been that we have an integrated industry. We've just negotiated 5 years ago the USMCA trade deal. Companies have invested a lot into making sure that they are compliant with that trade deal. You can't upend that after only 5 years. And on top of it, we're all competing with China in this race to electrify. If the Americans are fighting with Canada and Mexico, we're not setting the industry up for success. So that message is heard loud and clear. We're just not at a point yet where we've managed to find an off-ramp to some of these tariffs.
Okay, you say electrify, but at the same time, to my understanding, you think the EV mandate needs to be dropped right now. So how can you talk about being ready for electrification without these mandates?
Yeah, so electrification is happening. It is the future. That is clear. The challenge with the mandate is the government has set an artificial target that's not based off any consumer demand or even the development of an EV supply chain. So you can't go out and tell Canadians 20% of sales have to be electric next year when we're sitting at 7.7% sales. That isn't going to happen. And what you do in the interim is you put huge costs onto manufacturers to comply with these regulations. So everyone knows that electric is the future, but you can't overregulate these companies and put costs on them at this time.
Okay, there's also now talk of bilateral deals coming out. And when I hear the word bilateral, I think of the Canada-US Auto Pact, which precedes by decades free trade, NAFTA, and CUSMA. Would a bilateral deal be a positive thing?
I think we should prioritize a trilateral outcome simply because that's what the industry has adjusted to, and that has been what made auto competitive across North America. Now, that said, we have had bilateral deals in the past. You could do 2 bilateral agreements and have ways that the rules of origin accumulate amongst the different jurisdictions so that you would have North American manufactured vehicles. There is a way to do this, but I think from an efficiency perspective, it is best to focus on trilateral. If your only option is bilateral at the end of the day, then of course we're going to explore that. But trying to renew CUSMA is definitely the top priority.
Top priority. So what do you want the government to do here? Because again, I was in Washington earlier this week. I was in the Oval Office. It was actually Donald Trump answering my question when I asked why isn't there a deal yet. He said, well, they want an auto industry, we want an auto industry. So how do you compete against that? What do you think this government needs to do?
Well, there's 2 things. I mean, first of all, we have to find a way to get rid of the 232 tariffs on the automotive industry.
And those are the security tariffs imposed by the United States on Canada.
That's exactly it. 25% on Canadian vehicles, just recently announced on heavy-duty vehicles as well. So we have to find a way to remove those if we're going to successfully renew this CUSMA agreement. There is a deal to be had because this market, the Canadian market, is an important market for U.S. manufacturers. The Americans have a trade surplus with Canada in automotive. So I think we can find some understanding. And frankly, the current situation in the United States is untenable. Auto manufacturers are facing an estimated total tariff cost of $188 billion US dollars over the next 3 years. That isn't going to work. The system is so upside down that right now it is actually more competitive to build a car in Japan or in Europe and send it into the US as opposed to building in North America because of all the tariff costs. So we have to get past that first. And then number two, let's make our own industry competitive here. EV mandates, unnecessary regulation. We've got taxes on the sector that make absolutely no sense in this environment. Let's actually address these issues for once and make our industry competitive.
You know, we're now at this point where we have been living through uncertainty ever since Donald Trump was musing about tariffs against this country. Not quite even like a year, if I'm calculating that correctly. So much has happened in a span of months. What has been the impact already on investment vis-a-vis autos in this country because of that type of trade talk?
Yeah, well, uncertainty is very bad for investment. It's bad for all business, but auto in particular is a long lead time industry. When a company builds a manufacturing facility, they're not doing it for a couple of years. The intention is to be in that facility for decades. And if you look at the Canadian auto industry, I mean, manufacturers have been here for 120 years, long-term commitments to the market. But when you have this trade turbulence, it makes it very hard to plan for the future. And so that is what the USMCA and CUSMA is all about. We need to renew it. We need to give it a clear time horizon to allow manufacturers to make those investments, particularly at a time where competition from China is intensifying. You can't have trade policy being dictated via tweet and changing hour to hour. That simply doesn't work for this sector.
Okay, well, of course, we'll keep talking, and as the weeks and months go by, Brian Kingston, thank you for the time.
Thank you.